In the mansion, you spawn at the main entrance in this large room that has several doors, both upstairs and downstairs. Among these doors, most are dead ends, with quite a lot of items. And then comes a maze, which, as you can see, is fairly easy to recognize due to the large separation in path direction. In this guide, I will teach you all the tech used in High Quota to make sure you can full clear every day. First of all, for clearing main, it's important to split between the top and the bottom. Then, if you stick to the left, the first door isn't this one because you need to follow along this fence. So here is the first top left door, and the second, and the third. Front work 2. On the right side, this one is the third, then the second, then the first. If they don't appear, of course you shouldn't take them into account. Here's how to properly clear a library without missing anything by sticking to the left. When you pass by the stairs, it's your responsibility to go up. When you come back down from the library, if you go left, you will just retrace your steps. Instead, you need to go in the opposite direction after going downstairs. The person clearing the right side will handle the other rooms and finish with the stairs, eventually looping back. This way you avoid any confusion about who should clear what. You can hide behind the pillar, turret can't see you or hit you there. In this bookshelf setup, the two rectangular shelves don't have any texture for turrets, which means they can see straight through and shoot you from the other side. They can also spawn inside this bookshelf. This bookshelf in the fireplace can have turrets spawn inside and catch you off guard. The only time they won't spawn there is when a chair appears on the left. The kitchen counter can be used to hide from turrets. Even if they can barely see you, it keeps you from standing up. You can also stay completely out of sight by standing on top of it. But it won't protect you if the turret was already started firing. You can also use the oven to stay out of sight, but only if you're crouching. It also works if you stay pressing up against the wall the whole time. The couch can be used to stay out of sight or hide from a turret if you crouch properly, but it won't block the shot. The stairs railing can block the turret line of sight if you stay crouched while going up or down, but it won't block the shot. If you know the chair hitbox wall, you can use it to block the turret line of sight. Or stay out of the view by standing on top of it, but it won't block the shot. The stool can only block the turret line of sight. The most common one is the yellow railing. By standing on top of it, you're out of the sight and you can cross an entire room. You can also use a turret to stay out of sight of another turret. By moving around a pillar, you can avoid a landmine explosion. If you run straight down the stairs, you will have enough speed to trigger a landmine without taking damage. By going around the fence, you can also trigger them. Going around the counter work, but you can also jump over it. Just be careful not to jump where the lamps are, as they will block you. By using the speed from going downhill, like on the stairs at main, you will be fast enough to avoid taking damage. You just need to find the right angle depending on where the mine is. Here are a few examples to give you an idea of the range, where to stop and what's possible. Once again, we are using downhill speed. If a landmine spawns on the table, it's very easy, but using the table as cover to trigger a landmine is a bit trickier. When it explodes, you need to be centered on the table relative to the landmine. Or you can jump over it if the distance allows. Go around the chair from the backrest side to avoid the explosion damage. That's the part that blocks it best. Even jumping over it works, but you need to line up your jump with the backrest. The couch is pretty wide, so it offers multiple options. Going around it, jumping over it, both work. So have fun with it. The stool is very small, so it requires a good precision. Using corners or bookshelf is the most common method. The only condition is that the center of the landmine doesn't stick out. Still, leave yourself a bit of margin just in case. Be careful, these corner bookshelves do not work. The player clearing the top of main entrance should check the top of the bookshelf every time, since it's common to miss items there. The probability isn't very precise, but the goal is just to give an idea based on my experience. Take your time when clearing the kitchen, as items can be hidden between furniture or even on top of the fridge, even if it's very rare. The fireplace can have items on top, sometimes partially hidden in the floor. Some can be scanned, so take your time. But others can be completely invisible. In that case, you will need to keep it in mind if you are missing items. Only in the fireplace, item can spawn on top of the bookshelf, so I recommend always checking. It works the same way as with turret. If the chair spawns, there's no need to check. In the library, items can be hidden in this corner, or along the bookshelf. It's also important to check the top of the bookshelf, and a much rarer spawn is along the ledge, right there. Items in the tiny bookshelf can be well hidden, and some aren't scannable, so make sure to check every corner. Especially when a table and a chair spawn, since they can block your scanner, so make sure to move around and check everything so you don't miss anything. For each small shelf like this, an item can be hidden in the corner. It's a very common spot, yet people still miss items here. Pay attention and you should be able to spot the edge of a painting or the white part of a mask sticking out. For unscannable and invisible items, keep this in mind. If a teammate at the terminal calls out an item and you don't see anything, it might be under the carpet. In a room like this, people tend to rush through, but the couch can hide items. It's a very common spawn. Almost every table can have a magnifying glass with just the handle sticking out, so check each table carefully. And of course, always check every blind spot. Item can appear on top of main only if a room spawns behind it. Position yourself just before the second fence post, then place the ladder straight. I just failed, so I have to start over. Jump to grab the item, and you can also go to the middle. But for the other side, you will have to repeat the process. This spawn is the most common for stuck items. You will just need to come to the right spot and clip through. As you can see, the extension leader extends a second time, which pushed me properly. It's possible to use a second method, which involves pushing yourself just a little under the countertop, then doing it again where you want to clip to get the item. For this one, it's the same as the other, you just need to clip into it and spam E. Items can rarely get stuck on top of the counter. In that case, to clip up, place the extension leader with your back to the oven, looking as low as possible for V56, like this. For V64 and V69, try to drop it in the same spot as in the example. You can use the tile pattern on the floor to help. Items can often get stuck in this rectangular table. To clip inside using the extension ladder while looking straight, don't use this side but rather the other one. Otherwise, use the extension ladder by angling it slightly towards the wall. I've only seen one item stuck in the oven in 2000 hours of gameplay, but to get that item, you have to persist in clipping on one of the two sides of the oven while spamming E. Items stuck in the fridge only happen when the fridge has nav mesh above it, and so inside it. The explanation for the nav mesh spawning on the fridge is specific, and I talk about it in the safe spot explanation if you want to know. To get the item, it's not enough to just blindly clip with an extension ladder. You have to do it in a specific way. To do this, take your extension ladder, look as low as possible with the V56 view, drop the extension ladder, and once you've clipped with the extension ladder, pick it up very quickly before it clips you a second time. Next, you need to drop the extension ladder inside the fridge while looking as far straight as possible. Then pick the ladder, climb down, and you can grab the item easily. Otherwise, stand in front of the fridge and clip straight in by spamming E. It's a brute force method, but it works. Items stuck in the fireplace appear rarely. For the fireplace spot on the right side, simply clip with the extension ladder, looking as low as possible without moving. Then press forward once. You should be clipped enough into the fireplace to retrieve the item. For the left side, try aiming at the golden pillar while trying to clip at the back of the fireplace. Otherwise, another solution, like for the fridge, is to clip straight into it towards the center. To retrieve the item, look as low as possible. Then, step back just a bit to have the same visual as me. Drop the extension ladder and crouch without moving, before the ladder fully extends. Then move forward just a bit, you should clip in enough to grab the item or scan it. Note that the only one of the two sides can be clipped, and it's random. So try each long side of the bookshelf and adjust slightly to the right or the left, depending on the feeling. It takes some practice to get a good feeling about it. Items stuck in the bookshelf are quite common. As turret can spawn there, it happens the same way. For the bookshelf in library, it's much rarer. However, it's the same technique. So, as you can see, I test one side left, then right, and then I try the other side. If you're in V64 or V69 with the downward vision unlocked, I recommend using the same reference point as I do when I stick to the bookshelf. I've rarely seen items stuck under the stairs, but it's easy to clip inside, use the extension ladder twice, retrieve it. However, when getting out, be careful on the second clip, place the extension ladder to the side so you can retrieve it. For items stuck like a phone, a duck, or something very flat and thin in the stairs, this is what I managed to do without being able to get it, so if you have any idea, let me know. I've never seen an item naturally stuck behind this bookshelf, but Lootbug can place them there if there's a vent, so in that case, here's how to do it. Clip into a corner once you're behind the wall, orient yourself towards the wooden floor, being careful not to fall into the void. Depending on the side, it can be different, so here a second example from the other side. One of these items is the rarest and most bizarre that I saw. To get it, just clip at the back of the couch. In the mansion, the items on this list only spawn on the tables or on the kitchen counter, and you won't find them anywhere else. However, since the fancy lamp is poorly coded, it can spawn beneath the floor, which means it can appear anywhere, but since it emits light, it is quite visible. In the mansion, from V40 to V49, it's possible to have items voided under the map. So first, you will need to check with a jet by clipping at main and flying around the maze. Voided items only happen underneath the big room, right in the center of them. Once the big room is located, you will need to walk there with 2 extension ladders. The objective is to clip out of the map, place an extension ladder facing the voided item, in order to create a floor using the extension ladder. I recommend to clip here because no room can generate behind this wall, in the corner. Once you're teleported back to main, you have to clip as quickly as possible, then jump to the floor you create with the extension ladder. Given that the extension ladder duration is very short, it will only possible to get voided items that are very close to main. It's important to remember that clipping out of bound is forbidden in High Quota if it's used to move around. So everything you have seen is allowed because at no point do we use out of bound to travel from one room to another. And clipping to a room from main is the only exception, since that's the whole point of transfer in this version. In Duo, it will be the same. For the first step, you will need to locate the item. After that, someone who knows where the room is, head there with 2 extension ladders to place one underneath the room. This person will notify with a walkie-walkie when they arrive. Meanwhile, a person with a jet at main waits for the walkie signal to clip from main to retrieve the item. if, as in this example, the person drops the extension ladder too high, I recommend not going for the item, but instead retrieving the ladder and try again. The best case would be to have the extension ladder lower than the item, so you can retrieve both, as I showed earlier. It's still too high, but if the item is more valuable and you don't have time, you might as well go for it. For the lootbug session, I'm going to show you the spot where you can place your item to either trap the lootbugs or simply prevent them from seeing your items. The first one is the main fence, which allows you to trap them. Then in the kitchen, instead of leaving your item on the ground, I recommend this rectangular table, which can also trap loot bugs. The fridge isn't 100% safe, but the cabinet, which can spawn in the two locations right there, is a safe spot to place item. However, I don't recommend it because it's too high and takes too long to place your item. The edge of the screen is very useful for quickly trapping a loot bug. In the spy wall, it only works on this part of the fence and I don't find this very useful. I don't find this one useful either, and on top of that it's inconsistent for safe or trap. The chair is quite interesting, but be careful to know the different chair spawn, as some have nav mesh in the middle. I recommend placing item on top instead. The tool is simple and effective for trapping. This is a very good safe spot, but it will be outclassed by the yellow railing you can find everywhere, which work perfectly. The pink square represents the explosion coordinates, depending on the moon and the version. For free moon, no lineup is needed, since there's plenty of space. You just need to remember the safe coordinates to throw your egg without any issues. For all the free moon, you can simply go to the left corner, except for Offense V69 and Adamant V62 to V69. For Ren and Dine, you will need two lineup. One is for the low item count. Go to the right corner, then jump or crouch to sync your position with the host if you're in multiplayer. Then, while facing the wall, take the egg in your hand and you can then throw it anywhere as long as you keep it in your hand. Now for a high item count, go to the same corner, but this time look at the pillar to take the egg. The red coordinates are explosive for the example. I will put the mod I used in the description so you can test it and not messed up in a rare run. Artifice V40 and V56 is special because there is only one safe coordinate regardless of the item count. I recommend going in front of the pillar and taking the egg while facing it. And for V62 to V69, you just need to use the same low lineup as Ren and Dine. The main door can let you cheese the masket and the butler, which is very useful, but your teammate entering will get hit, so be careful. By positioning yourself just behind the fence pillar, you have a great cheese spot for everything. But sometimes monster can still hit you if there's not on top of you, but just behind the fence. And also, if you kill a butler, don't stay underneath it, or you will take damage from the explosion. The freeze isn't a consistent spot because Navmage can appear on top of it. Here are some screenshots of Seed as example, and honestly I can't be sure of the exact reason why it appears, but here's my theory. A room needs to spawn with a golden pillar between the fridge and the counter to create the link between them. So you often end up with a library or a fireplace, as you can see. This one is very weird because it doesn't match what I just said. But if you look above the kitchen, there is another library with a pillar placed in the right spot. So I recommend using the cabinet instead, which can spawn here or here. You need to stand at the very edge, otherwise monster can usually reach you, but it's still a very good safe spot. The door position in the TV room can be used as safe spot or cheese spot, mainly used for butler, I'd said. This pour requires a bit of precision, but it's the best cheese for butler since you can grab the knife right away. For the nutcracker, you can use the fence to block the shot. But be careful of the kick. Once you're on the spot, you should be safe. This spot requires you to bait the nearest stumper, as it can see you behind the fence and will eventually leave. But once you're in this position, you're good, and the other monsters are less of a problem. For this one, it's not a permanent spot because you require the spawn of the tiny bookshelf. This tiny shelf is only useful to chase the butler or loot bugs in V40, V56. Because butler in V62 to V69 can kill you. The fireplace is a bit of a special spot to jump onto it. You shouldn't hug the wall, as you can see from the hitbox. Also, something very important is that the left side can have nav mesh, so you need to make sure you're positioned correctly in the center. Being on top of a curved bookshelf is a safe for everything. And I will show you how to do it in the jump and shortcut section. It's possible to chase the spider, but don't crouch until the spider has stopped moving, and it's best to use a corner. For the ghost girl, you're safe everywhere on the railing except in doorways, so favor corners and never crouch or you will die. For the Maneater, if you're in V62, it can be difficult to kill because you can't hit it while standing on the railing, and crouching will get you killed. However, in V64 or V69, since the downward vision is unlocked, it's much easier. V40, it's possible to chase the temper and the spider almost everywhere. Here are some examples like the stool, the chair, on the table, but the most useful remains the railings. For this bookshelf setup, green represents the side where you can trap the Maneater and red where it doesn't work. If you're not sure, you can simply test it like this. To kill it, just stay behind the pillar and it shouldn't be too difficult. Only in V62 is it possible to trap the Maneater in this pillar by coming here and making him transform. A very common spot to kill the Maneater is this ledge in the library. Place him here and hit him until he dies. If he moves over here, bait him or just use the bookshelf as support to reach it. As I explained for turret or scraps, regarding nav mesh spawning on this bookshelf, this trap won't work if this chair is here because the nav mesh doesn't appear. As you can see, I don't have the chair, so the nav mesh is present and I can trap the Maneater. Stand facing the bookshelf, look as high as possible while making the Maneater cry, and it should teleport on top. I only recommend this for V62 side, it's not really killable. And finally, another very common spot is the tables. Not all tables work, so I recommend testing first. Place him on top, then step back to see if he can escape. The one in the kitchen always works. A spike trap spawning here is rare, but it allows you to kill a slime very easily. Using the stairs with a spike trap nearby is by far the best solution to kill a slime easily. Even easier is a spiral, which is the only path the slime can take. I didn't show it, but the Maneater also works in most cases. The slime can only climb onto the couch from this spot, so in some cases where a table spawns in front, it won't be able to climb. It's possible to use the front of the fireplace, but for that you absolutely need the center of the slime hitbox on top of it. It's not very visible, but the slime barely climbed onto the edge before dying. The carpet is a very common spot, and to kill the slime you just need its center to be above the carpet. The problem is that most spike traps spawn slightly too high at the same level as carpet. So to make sure it works, you need to check beforehand and practice a bit. Certain bookshelf generation can make fence traps more difficult, like the vertical one, but also this one, which has a special trap. This one doesn't impact anything because the nav mesh never appears on the rectangular bookshelf. And finally, horizontal bookshelves on the left side are annoying, but the one on the right allows for a special trap. Before trapping on the fence, you need to place your jester around the third fence post. Then wait for it to wind before positioning yourself for the trap. However, doing it this way makes the jester face the door. So if someone enters, it will switch aggro. Instead, make it face the other way. For all traps where it's not specified that it's solo, you will need one person inside who is accessible to the jester via nav mesh. For this trap, you just need to jump at the right timing, and depending on the bookshelf, it can make it more difficult. For the coil head, you just need to place it in the right spot and jump. The coil in V62 to V69 is more complicated. First, position it on the first post. Then go down, and when you turn around, run and jump in this direction. It's purely a matter of blind timing, so practice is needed. To trap the bee, jump once or twice on top, then go down and jump again at the right moment. The timing for the bees is quite specific, so I recommend practicing as well. By placing your teammate in front of this pillar and then baiting the bee down, they will trap themselves without any needing to jump. There are a few exceptions with bookshelves that can sometimes make it harder. Sometimes the bee will go back and forth like in this example, but for the other players they're just standing in the same place. In that case, you will need to resync the bee, and the best way to do that is to have the other player jump a few times very slowly. The fence on the right side worked exactly the same, but it was fixed in V62. The green zone on the right side vertical bookshelf allow you to trap entity. Just jump a bit earlier than you would for the fence trap. This method is better than the previous one. Your teammate just need to stand in front of the pillar and you need to spam jump when they are near the second post. If the jester comes from one of the fourth door near main, then the second player needs to stand on the door and drop down at the right moment. If it comes from below, he needs to drop when it's just before the start of the stairs. And if it's coming from above, drop when it exits the door. If the jester comes from another door, the player can stay on the ground from the start. For the person doing the trap, you need to position yourself between the third and the fourth fence post. The timing for the jump is when the jester reaches the corner of the fence. In this example, I'm intentionally spamming jump to show you what the other player should do. He needs to react and not try to predict the jester coming at him, and be ready to jump onto the door and drop down just after that. For this fast trap, you need to stand on the edge of the stairs on the other side of the fence, with your teammate above. Then jump when the jester reaches the corner and spam jump to make it come back down and try again. But be careful, you're not 100% safe. If you fail and the jester is higher up, go down, your teammate will jump and send the jester back to you, which can also trap it. Then go back up and try again. Now let's move on the possible trap in solo. If you kill a butler in the right spot, the bee will be able to trap themselves. To do this, I recommend jumping to make the butler come back down, to give you time to get into position. Then go down with your shovel ready to hit, and for the timing, good luck. For example, here I kill it way too low, here's a better example. When you have a bookshelf, it's much easier, even if it's a bit longer. First, you need to lure it above you. To bait him on top of you, you just need to jump. Then, be ready to strike while looking up. When you see it coming down, release your hit to kill it underneath you. In this bookshelf spawn, the timing is much easier with this spot. For the second bookshelf, it's the same, it's just harder to lure him. With this setup, it's possible to trap entities in the right rectangular bookshelf. You need to position yourself perpendicular to the center of the bookshelf, and when the butler walks onto the pillar here, you need to move left as straight as possible. The problem is that you won't get the knife. For the jester, I recommend making it spawn in front of the main door, like I do, because the timing depends on the speed. Like with the butler, it's the same timing in the same spot. Just know that if you miss the timing, you will probably die, so it definitely requires some practice. In the kitchen, you can use this table to clip out easily. Go to the specific spot to clip from the edge, then move onto the floor behind the wall. If you want to retrieve the ladder, it's possible, but you need to be precise. Otherwise, use a couch as support and it will let you retrieve everything easily. In the library, you can clip out from the fence, then drop slightly lower to retrieve everything. Otherwise, you can use the corner on my left or the one in front of me. A very good spot to clip out is a maze without bookshelf, but you need to clip twice. The railing is the most common spot. You just need to stand between these two wooden beams. The advantage is that even if you're surrounded by rooms, you will always have an area with void behind you. Here are the zones in green where you should always clip on the railing. All the doors indicate the direction of main based on the side they are open toward. The door frame work as well. For example, this one is hollow, so if you go through it, it will be heading in the right direction. You can compare it to this door frame, which also has a door. On the other side, there is a small extra border. Now, regarding direction, it doesn't indicate north, south, east or west. It only indicates the sequence of rooms that will lead you to main. This means you can go south, then back north, as long as you don't pass through the same room. Also, if the layout loop, the door won't be able to indicate anything, so don't rely on them in that case. The big room and the tea room, you can easily jump onto the bookshelf if a turret spawns nearby. You can also use a door to help yourself jump onto the bookshelf. Otherwise, a consistent method is to set your game to 30 FPS and jump from the railing. A gem that not very useful and quite difficult, but small bookshelf can spawn to help you.